Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, bringing life the shape of justice. Roots hold. Spirit Spark, Stories and Musings and Poems, read by Millie White. Copyright 2019 by Millie White, all rights reserved. Unless otherwise credited, photos used in this book are public domain. Published by Henschel House Publishing, Inc., Milwaukee, Wisconsin, www.henschelhousebooks.com, ISBN 978159598-701-3. Library of Congress Control Number 20199300378. Cover photo by Millie White, Falmouth Sunset. Author photo, title page by Karen Ruggiero. Introduction. As our transformations we go on, sometimes so slowly that we weep with despair. Know that we have mystical messengers surrounding us, sometimes unaware, to remind us of our immortality and strength and knowing. So, on May 28, 2018, 8:53 a.m., the above message poem flashed into my head whilst I was emailing a friend, telling her about a dear little nephew of ours. I had sent a picture to her of his kissing my cheek and told her that he was deeply loved and spirit has been with him. Now you may ask, what's with the exact time and date bit? Well, using a computer and that computer keeping track of things for me has allowed my looking back at this amazing time of being gifted with poems that come to me. Yes, many times I read them and say, yikes, did I write that? No, I should just back up a bit and tell you that I had written some poetry about 30 years ago, just for myself and then a few friends. I included a revised few in this book. Some had just come to me, but certainly not with the force that they have changed my life around since late 2017 to the present. Another thing that you might want to know is that I had never heard about certain poets, no less read their poems, including Mary Oliver, Hafiz, Rabindranath Tagore, and Rainer Maria Rilke, to mention my favorites. I had been writing poems for a while from late December 2017 before people gifted me with their books or I learned of their names. With no offense meant, I just did not read poetry. When I finally did hear about them and was given or bought their books, I was amazed at their writing. I felt a close connection that I've never ever felt before when reading poetry. I get chills and understand on such a deep level what they are expressing and how it makes me feel. In addition, I had never heard the word awakening until I was given a book about such things very recently. I'd read Oliver Sacks' Musicophilia, which gave me some clues about what was going on. You may notice as you go along that many of the poems have more than a bit of a relationship with one or more of the others. They each tell a true story and or poetic interpretation of how or why they came to me. If you would like to share your own stories, my email address is whitemillie31@gmail.com. Acknowledgements. I want to thank people who have helped me during the writing and publishing of Spirit Spark, and who, despite my kicking and protesting with, oh no, I won't publish, kept up with suggestions and encouragement anyway. Terry Arthur, author extraordinaire, who appears in a poem within, made my life 5 zillion times easier by preparing than teaching me how to put poems within Word. I always write them and edit them by hand first. She showed me how to add pictures, then how to create the whole book of poems in some magical word process. This was sent in icons to Kira Henschel, Terry's publisher. Kira had said yes when I asked her if she would publish Spirit Spark for me. Brave woman. Another thing about Terry, when she thought some poems needed more editing or rewriting or placing in the book, she told me so and why. Interestingly, I had had the same feeling about those very poems too. I am grateful for her insight and having never lost her patience with my techie ignorance and my lack of patience with myself. Many, many thanks, Terry. From the beginning, December 2017, Karen Ruggiero, my friend, had been keeping track of the poems by putting them in a file each time I'd send them over for her to read via email. Much later, I found out that the file was in her computer. I had thought she meant in a file cabinet. When she said they should be published in a book, I said, yikes, no. I think her next remark was, if you don't, I will, because they should be published, and I've got them all in a file, so I can. I'm still picturing the file cabinet. I think when she said I was a poet, that's when it started to sink in. Yikes. I thank Karen for her patience, her unique critiques, and her caring enough to gently push me toward publishing, sometimes calling me Mildred. This made me pay attention, she knew it would, and also made me laugh. How could I refuse, especially when she'd raised one eyebrow as she said Mildred? Moreover, Karen took the author photo on the title page when we were at dinner before a Friends of Cape Wildlife presentation, as well as other photos throughout the book. Thank you so very much, Karen. Now I want to tell you about our writers group. It was conceived by Jean Nzika, our illustrious leader. Many of us has attended a monthly reading project at Wacoit Congregational Church's Parish Hall. Jean had chosen a book of essays called This I Believe. We would read the book, choose, and then read our favorite essays to the group, and perhaps write our own. By then, several of us wanted to continue together beyond the allotted time. Bless her heart, Jean was delighted. The larger group became a smaller group, with our choosing a name, Word Weavers. It was adopted from a diverse but welcoming writers group in a small southern mountain town, where Jean had settled for a while. We added Wacoit, and Wacoit Word Weavers was born. As the time went by, our members became close friends, who felt a dedication to each other's thoughts and writings, and even artwork, as much as to our own. We are Jean Nzika, Bobby Keene, Jackie Finney, Betty Flagg, Sally Gasparoni, and yours truly. Several others like Jane Tanner, Christine Lawhead, and Beth Rockwell are recent arrivals, and a few others come and go as time or work allow. I'm not speaking for just myself when I say that we look forward to each meeting with great anticipation. It goes beyond the writing or art we hear or see. It goes to the heart of each person's feelings and the joy in seeing such creations develop. Can you tell, dear reader, how grateful I am for each of them? Now, speaking of encouragement brings me to Jan Smith Rushton. A retired Methodist minister, Jan had asked me if she could interview me for a course she was taking. To make a long story short, her questions about spirituality took me back to my childhood and back again. Months later, as the poems started coming in, this spiritual life review by Jan really helped me understand some of what was going on. When I first showed her my poems, wow, like Terry and Karen and the Wacoit Word Weavers, Jan seemed excited about them and for me. She helped me with the title as well. Later, when I told her that Kira had said yes to publishing the book, she clapped her hands in delight. Her hubby, Bob, a gentleman with a great sense of humor, quietly said, "Uh-oh, two authors in one household." I especially want to thank my daughter Bonnie White and my granddaughter Cassidy White McFarlane. They have been so very supportive, with Cassidy requesting that I write a poem to which she could write music, which she has. Retuned Heart is in memory of my sister, Jan Butler, who died on the 27th of June, 2016. 4 poems about Bonnie's babyhood and early childhood are also in the book. She graciously allowed me to include them. Thank you, Bonnie. I'm so grateful to have you in my life. I'm not sure that this book would exist if Bonnie had not encouraged my getting more involved in online computer activities. Once again, my kicking and screaming were overcome by her reasoned and gentle persuasion. Hence, her childhood home, Grasmere, was enshrined for a while within a Facebook tribute a number of years ago. Grasmere's revised poem is included herein, along with some accompanying pictures from the mid-1900s. Will Felder inspired Seal with his very exciting and true story, just told from Seal's point of view. Spark of creativity is Fran Rivera's doing. Amy Tufts, a new friend, got Mother to Mother going when I thought the book was finished. But oh no, back to my writing pad, she reminded me of an amazing episode I had told her about years ago. And yes, you guessed it, a poem popped in and was born. I mentioned Denise Tornick and sent her many thanks as well. Denise is my mentor about cats and other creatures and has been my very good friend since the Grasmere days. If I have left some people out, please forgive my fuzzy brain. So many folks started the poems by saying something that then sparked ideas. Some may not even realize they did. When that happened, zingo, into my brain, then into a poem. Of course, Nell Field's sermons could have had me writing for years to come, and maybe will. Look for Grasp the Golden Threads as one example, and on. Love, Millie. Gift of a Rainbow. As dawn's rays of sunlight filter through new leaves of spring and dapple my curtains, I think of you. The days have color, no more the gray monotones that posted themselves like sentries along my path, forbidding glimpses of joy. What miracle brought you into my life? Like a beacon of light, you shine into the corners of my soul, reflecting through and illuminating each moment of the day. At last, at night, resisting sleep, I hold you in my heart and drift along on sunlit waters with my dreams and you. This was written in 1986, and I just revised it this past 2 years. Grasmere Revisited. So at times unsure, I feel a lump form in my throat. Grasmere has been my home, my way of life for years. I've written poems to her. Though built of stones, circled with trees and lakes and hills, she hears my words of love. She is alive, and I can hear her whisper in the night, "Will you come back to me again?" Whilst daily work distracts my mind from memories that wait to overthrow the plans for love anew, whose silken webs surround my healing heart and pull me toward the coast. It matters not, for Grasmere claims and interrupts with whispering to me, "Will you come back to me again?" The boulders mock me. We've been here since glacial forces pushed us south and scattered us like pebbles in the waves at sea. We cannot leave. Our children form her very core. Again, I hear their whispers in my dreams. Will you come back to us again? Now but a vestige of his former self, the mighty oak recalls the swing upon his limb, from which a girl and collie dog did fly. So standing guard behind the gated entrance there, he also asks in quiet dignity the same refrain that haunts my sleep each night. I hear their calls. My soul is stretched between the valleys, hills, and ponds, and ocean, sand, and sky. The choice is mine, and so I choose to follow love, to follow roads out to its source, where forests meet the sea. So I must answer them with surety of heart's desire. I answer them with trembling voice. I will come back and visit you again. Christmas morning. She welcomed me into the place of healing, the angel volunteer with the name of a flower. I thanked her for being here on Christmas morning. We are here so others can celebrate on their holy day, said this daughter of Sarah and Naomi and Ruth. My charioteer, her spouse, parted the way to the inner rooms, where the angels of healing took care of me as if I were their own. Fear not, and I didn't. You are not alone, and I never was. So, as from the entryway, escorted by the children of David, to the inner core, where I was cared for by the children of many faiths and from many lands, we were as one spirit, as close as a prayer, as close as a song, as close as a heartbeat. The invitation. So she said, "Yay, see you for lunch." Then followed some of the sweetest words I'd heard that day or in a week. "Come earlier, 'cause I'll be baking and you can pick out the crumbs." Oh, my former life flashed and tumbled in my brain. I heard my sister, with a laugh, chiding me for doing such a thing, for I had. And yet, years into this present life, could this be real? I was invited to gather crumbs fallen from the cake, and then was promised more to come. Well, how could this be? It was a dream. It was a fantasy come true. Go ahead. Some of you may laugh, but others won't. You know who you are. One last thing that tingled my brain again, that tingled my tongue even more, was the news. The news. It was a blue ribbon winning butter crumb cake I was invited to pick crumbs from, and many will share delight in my luck. For is it not incredible, is it not amazing how much joy, how much happiness can be received, can be given in simple words, in simple gifts, in simple invitations? I'll be baking and you can pick out the crumbs. Jan in winter. As my sister used to say, on a colder than cold day, "I think my eyeballs are freezing." I thought that was a funny thing to say, and certainly something I would not want to feel. But I went out to feed the critters on a morning when it was colder than cold. So Jan came to me and said, "Now you know what I meant." And I did, and I laughed and cried all at the same time. Remembering. Strange, perhaps, a poem about poems, for when they flood my brain, I need to sort the thoughts before they vanish in the clouds. I need to write at least a word, or a name, or a beginning line, when a word or a name or a beginning line seem as requests from afar, until the writing's done and mulling thoughts are stilled by Spirit's gentling voice, which tells me, read this poem to find the next. Sir Davis. 5+ years ago, through our deck door, his emerald eyes stared coolly into mine. "Who sent you?" I, fully knowing who it was, his look-alike who'd passed away 2 years before, but had never really left. Still he sat. He did not blink those calm and knowing eyes, waiting for the lunch foretold by Perlikins the fair. She told him of a safer life where he could come and go through secret fencing holes his size that would keep coyotes out. Coming to a greater age, he knew he must retire from begging food and catching less and finding caves in snow. So there he was that August day, all matted hair and wounded ear, and searched my soul with emerald eyes to stake his claim and make our house his home. Was it you? Whilst I was preparing my meal for later in the day, was your mantra calling? For this poem pushed in homemade biscuits as its title, or perhaps its beginning words. I wrote the first draft in pencil so that as they flooded in, I could erase and write and correct and write with less interruption. I am hearing. The Sermon on the Mount is about so much more than food. What am I really hearing as it flows into my mind? This then I know, my friend, when you present to me a veggie meal or spontaneous mantra-driven biscuits, as I receive them, my heart fills with another kind of nourishment. It understands as it receives, because it's food for the soul from you. Knowing. When I had wept tears of grief at other times, of course I understood. But when tears of joy rained through my soul, I could not understand. This was new, this joyful weeping, and as its meaning came slowly, I marveled at the recognition of new beginnings. Feeling Spirit's love within me, I quieted my very being with the mystic celebration of the prayer cycle of song, the prayer cycle of love, and rejoiced. Mother to mother. The giant gray shapes emerged from between the thorn trees, where they had been feeding unseen. The young teenagers flapped their large ears, bellowed and charged our jeep to impress the others, including the tiniest, who ran beneath their mothers' bellies looking for comfort and food. A lady with our group quietly exclaimed with trembling voice that the herd was closing ranks behind us. Our driver guide spoke in low and reassuring tones as we were slowly surrounded by the herd. Oh my, the matriarch 6 feet away, rumbling low and gentle things, quieted her family, who swayed and blew dust and gathered babies to their sides. Fascinated, but somehow not afraid, I remembered Denise's lessons of talking to cats, starting with really slow eye blinks, then picturing, well, for a cat, salmon in its dish. Surely an elephant, a lovely matriarch, would appreciate slowly blinking eyes and pictures sent of tasty leaves and wild squash. Thus, catching her eyes and sending those thoughts with love her way, slowly blinking and sending tasty pictures, I continued until at last she blinked as well. Later, after our exchanges, this great gray matriarch turned and took her family back the way they'd come. One last look my way, mother to mother, an understanding that will last a lifetime. Harmonious connections. When each idea or feeling commands my attention, and it's all that I can hear, and about all that I can think, I am led or directed toward the way that makes me look deeper, or perhaps beyond, to fathom why the message left its spiral place to be heard, to be known, to be understood. I've been asked what thing or strange events caused the avalanche or symphony within my being, within my soul, to bring these thoughts to light. I cannot say, except that gems of knowing have been there waiting for their dormancy to end, the ancient memories or cosmic truths to awaken me and come here for me to share. Their urgency apparent as I must write. This I know when I listen to the songs they bring. They settle, I settle as I work the words around, until with Spirit's presence like a gentle touch, a mother's touch, surrounding me with love, I can then rest. My work is done, and I proclaim they're safely in a poem at last. Sir Davis Revisited. So every night I say a word or two of love as he rolls on the bed from one side to the other. The pink of his nose blends into the pink and white of his lips, and somehow he creates a smile that enchants the heart. In his deepest sleep, sometimes he reaches out his paw to me, an invitation to begin my nightly time of praise. You see, it's been 5 years since he came here, ragged, hungry, yet imperious, so sure of himself, he took my breath away. He'd spent at least a decade out in weather fair or foul, with hidey holes for shelter, scrounging food each place he'd go, until at last he heard the message only he could understand, and he'd found himself this home. Now in times of slumber, deep within his feline dreams, he's still alert, for as I say my words of praise, he hears and starts to purr. His favorite times, when spring has hatched the tiny buds of oak, and gentle beams of light warm places just for him. Up on the deck he stretches his great length of self, all white and black, in greetings to the sun. Unrestrained by thoughts of doom or coming winter cold, his dreams are kinder now, echoing the praise and love he heard the nights before. He learned that he could trust us. He could tell us with his eyes. Closed doors that once would panic him, we'd open when he stared. What most he cherished was his freedom that forever would remain. But wandering off for distances became a thing no more. So in this house of learning, we found that this was true. Love can be a living force in everyone, a grant of grace for all. The spiral. The messages within the messages spiral outward. They come to you in random words or songs that are the music of the spheres. When in songs, they may remain with you all day or comfort you at night when you cannot sleep before the dawn. Before the start of day unravels their meanings as they arc through time and perhaps faster than the speed of light, as they unwind like a ball of string or expand with the Milky Way, prepare yourself. Prepare yourself to grasp the golden threads, the golden promises given when you were but a child. Grasp them as your day begins, with singing or dancing or praising, holding close those remembrances from so long ago, from beyond the stars. Reclaim those truths, the knowing who you are, cloaked in strength and courage, joy and love, to start your life each day anew. Spark of creativity. There is a lady in the lab who always greets me by my name before I even sign in. This happens no matter how busy they are or how long it's been between visits. How can she do that? How does she maintain that calm, that kindness, and always remember my name? Somehow I suspect it is the same for every patient she sees. Still I marvel and feel special, and each lab time I hope for enough time to talk. At least, how have you been? How were your holidays? You know, the usual. This time she listened closely to my Christmas Day story, my shocking Christmas Day tale when rhythm was restored to my heart. But even more important, I shared the wonder of the poems that now pop into my brain, carried on a song or a name or a random phrase. So having heard my story, without blinking her eyes, without a thought or doubt, she plucked a phrase from spiraling stars, where poems are born, and sent it to my soul. For then she said, just like a spark of creativity, "Oh," I gasped. Her words were like a bolt of lightning, a pulse of recognition that made my face and eyes light up, she later said. For I had been gifted by this angel in the lab on just an ordinary day, not on Christmas like before, not in the church 2 times before, or late at night when whispering a prayer. Now, as these waves of knowing flooded my soul, in this place of healing, in this place of kindness, I'd been gifted once again to understand how poems arrive as harmonious connections, and now perhaps the why. Not even close. I'm glad you like it, she said, when I became effusive over her Valentine gift for me. Pictures of owls were on the front cover and had made me smile. But as my eyes had drifted to the author's name, I gasped, drew in that telltale breath that spoke volumes about the great delight in my heart. Mary Oliver, I cried out, where did you find this? Which really was beside the point. For despite her busy days, she'd taken time to follow through, to find the perfect gift for me, a gift of love. I'm glad you like it, she said again. Said I to her, dear one, not even close. 4 Crows and the Chant. Shining in the sun, his black feathers astir from agitation, he looked back and forth, cawing, calling to his friends in distant trees. At last, one by one, they joined him on the great oak's branch, as I, with thanks, sighed the chant aloud. The simple-sounding chant that echoes down through Buddhist past, the peaceful law each living thing can know. Coyote, squirrel, or butterfly, the giant oak, or grasses swaying near the sea, can feel its mystic waves. To witness this, just after dawn or evening's call, I've watched one squirrel sit up and hear as others scampered by, or chickadee join in with song as part of his refrain. Back to the crows, I wondered which of them would turn to hear the chant and which of them would leave. At first, with no attention paid, they readied for their flight, until the chant was multiplied at least a dozen times. Now picture this, within your mind, within your soul where spirit lives. Each crow slowly turned in line to face me as mystic chanting rose toward Great Oak's branch. Each crow bowed as if in response to prayer, then lifted up on shining wings together, spiraling out and far beyond the trees. Then they flew into the sky above me, calling back, perhaps announcing things that only they knew. They knew before the chant. Shims and other cedar shingle musings. The fragrance compelled my nose to follow it around the side and to the back where a giant dumpster stood. Oh, old cedar shingles, you're all that's left of your soft bark trunks with cores of lovely red and the aroma that takes me back to shady nooks in forests that I love to roam. But memories are not all that you will know, for your uses now are myriad. A few of us have named them one by one and even two. Bob wanted you for shims, and Jan remembered scenes of birds painted on your golden sides as crafts. But perhaps you'd enjoy helping a gardener who'd place your sharp edge down into the earth from where you were born to keep the earthworms tucked into the garden, while you keep the chewers of the tiny veggie rootlets out. So worry not, we won't forget you, as we know a lovely song about you. For before you covered and protected Parish Hall, you and others like you lived in green cathedrals of our scouting days. We know you as a priestly cedar sighing in a hallowed forest shrine, and so we always will. Seal, inspired by Will Felder. His brindled brown and gray head raised as he caught the slightest change in sense. Wind had lifted once again along the coast. The colony prepared for hunting, but waited for a sign. As dark eyes searched, his whiskers trembled with each exploring of the air. It was not the smell of large machines that raced along to scatter or to even harm his herd. And yet he waited, Ah, he remembered now the time they came before, and great whites headed out to sea when the shark saw the others here. The scent grew stronger, and then there they were, a single flipper joining each pair of legs, their fragile bodies each tethered to the sky by a cord to a single flying, billowing wing. So, seal bark commands, we will join together, we will stay the course beyond the sharks, as their sun-kissed, dappled bodies slipped into the water off the beach. And so it came to pass. These two groups joined again as one to swim and hunt in safety, the other to fly with joy, to fly with pure abandon upon the tops of waves, on tops of waves in sunlit seas, drawn along by kites that billowed and were tethered to the wind. Harbinger of Spring, April 7, 1968. You announced your plans for Monday, on a Sunday, on a working in the garden day when daffodils and tulips bloomed. For later after dinner, I, laughing, said to Peg, I'm fine, just a little backache, too much bending, too much raking, as they left for home that night. I should have known this child of ours, this child called Chip, until we had the chance to meet. Just could not wait. As buds on trees can't stop their leaves from opening, nor bulbs stay dormant in the warming ground, you could not stop your soul's awakening. It must be soon, so much to do. As returning wood thrush sang their haunting love calls, as peepers trilled their nightly call, you hunkered down to start your new adventure from warmth of mother's nest to unfamiliar light and cold. Down we went on stony roads in growing darkness, round chilling curves on Skyland's roads. Of course, this bumpy trip just helped to hasten the long-awaited meeting of our child, our precious harbinger of spring. Day you were born, April 8, 1968. When they brought you to us, lovely child of spring, I stared as your eyes reflected back to mine. Your tiny Dutch grandma's face looked up at me, and I looked back in wonder. I hope you felt my love and saw the love in your father's eyes, so much like yours, sparkling with delight. Then Guma joined us from the chapel down the hall, where she had sung with other folks. They mourned for King, whose dying days before had torn apart our land and hearts. Alerted once again to changes coming, my soul cried out, please understand, born in this time of war, but living with the dreams of peace might be your destiny. Born in this time of racial despair, marching and protesting all violence, but with the dreams of new beginnings, whom to follow. Yet with a sigh that changed in years to, oh, Mom, you nestled in and drifted off to sleep, to wander through your own dreams, perhaps to hear the voices from a far-off time, whispering lessons from a far-off place beyond the stars. So once again you sighed as I held your tiny hand in a caress. Bonnie's first day home, April 12, 1968. This first day home with you plays like a video in my mind when I tell of the preparations we took to try to make things work out. You may laugh as I did remembering. For after we unlocked the Skylands gate, festooned with signs that Annie made, welcoming you home, I began to worry anew. Halfway up the 2-mile drive, I said to John, I've got it. You carry her in, and I will greet Timmy, who had pulled out an electric plug and chewed it in frustration the night before. So with that plan, with quaking hearts, we proceeded. Grasmere Gatehouse awaited you, whilst Tim awaited me. Well, it worked. He danced, he rolled over, he danced again, waving front paws in the air. Never before had this small, black, fuzzy poodle displayed such joy, such excitement as I scooped him up. Later, I sat in the rocker. Timmy sat on the couch. You were put in my arms, my sweet dear daughter love. You were home at last, our family complete. Tim slowly sidled over on the couch, reached out his paw and looked at us. This is your sister, Tim. Her name is Bonnie. As I held you up so that he could see. He moved gently forward, took one inquisitive look and one discerning sniff, then another long inquiring snuffle. And in a flash, as fast as he could pivot, as only Balakind could do, he raced away, sat down, and with his curly back toward us, perhaps never to return again, at least not for a long, long time. Future vistas. Springtime born, the little girl with rabbit ears upon her hat was running through a field of flowers, followed by a handsome lad 3 months her senior, racing to keep up. When he did at last, with gentle touch, he took her arm and turned her to his kiss. At first she welcomed sweet soft lips upon her velvet cheek. Once, twice, yet once more. But in a flash she spun around through flowers toward the wide, long vista, going her own way on tiny feet, coursing along as if to lift off and fly. Her father called out for her return, but on she flew. Her bunny ears kept cadence with her feet. And even as her dad caught up, he smiled, encouraging her determined run as I recorded every step that took her far from me. For on this loveliest of days, I knew somehow her life was being planned and practiced by herself in measured steps, in faster starts, preparing for her own life's vistas, filled with myriad adventures. All around the world she'd go. A woman who could make her way alone at times and glory in the run. Ladies of the Lamp. She'd been a caregiver all her life, as big sister, then teacher, nurse, and leader, a woman to whom all could turn for advice and help. So on the dark and stormy night, her life refocused. A night that sent her mind and her heart and her soul on adventures afar and thousands of miles to distant lands. This first night of the journey may be hard to believe, but I was a witness to the truth. The night when only fire in the hearth and candles on the mantel gave her warmth and light. A birthday book she'd left alone for months but was easiest to read by flickering flames caught little interest until mid-book, she came upon the page where all distraction ceased. Macabre postcards a century old, with tales of what they meant, made her look at them once more and again, with her promise that come morning she'd learn about this nurse. Never had she heard her name before this night, but they would know. The nurse historians, the experts, the committees from the archives, they would know tomorrow. So cozy by the fire, Orange Cat nestled in her lap, storm blowing snow and ice against the window panes, she drifted away with questions circling her mind. And in that time began adventures of a nameless kind. For out of storm and candlelight came whispered stories and a plea. O sister of the lamp, bring my voice alive again. It is only through compassion and love that the world will change, not through war. As Terry awakened to a furnace humming, awakened to a clear blue sky, it seemed the quiet voice the night before had come from distant dreams, a distant time, and yet she felt possessed by knowing she must follow through. Perhaps it was a week or more before she learned the truth. Of experts called, none recognized this noble nurse. though some had heard their mother speak her name in reverential tones. So not to be stopped, nor to have her fervent search delayed, our modern Lady of the Lamp forged on until she found her hero, to resurrect her life, or perhaps, as some suspect, as many know, and I a witness do, that Edith Cavell found our Terry, whose writings shed eternal light, whose writings filled the void, allowing Edith's voice to echo beyond the ages, beyond the stars, for many years to come. Conversations with a Blue-Winged Warbler. Watch how he flits his feathers as he moves from finch food to the suet. Hear his bzzz as he waits impatiently for the food lady to finish her rounds. He arrived mid-April, and on that first day, he almost sat on my head, bzzing that funny song to which I tried to bzz back. 'Twas too hard for me to do, but he was gracious, or so hungry that he stayed to eat. Lovely little bird, smaller than a goldfinch, but watch him make the others move, except the blue jay. Today, I told him how beautiful he was as he bzzed and flitted in the trees, and how I loved his presence at our home. Then Sir Davis came behind me through deck sliders. See how grand and courtly is this long-haired cat? Actually imperial, the black butterfly crown upon his head. His look says, I am the one you talk to, praise, and call me handsome guy. He asks, why are you talking now into the air, it seems, when I have been inside? So, Blue-Winged blitz, and David stared, a stalemate sure to end. This way it did, as Davis walked sedately down the stairs, while Blue-Winged bzzzt and flitted and ate again once more. Spirit in the morning. In the quiet of the early morning, I feel Spirit's presence closer than at other times. Wondering why, perhaps as only Libras do, I think that Spirit's smaller creatures are awakening then and starting their new day in praise. This pure echo of the love of Spirit rises as the sun does, and in the music of the birds. And so, together we can glory in that knowing, and in gratefulness as one. Morning with the crows. Oh, you cheeky crows, listen to your noisy cawing. I guess you don't remember, but should know I do have more to do before you get your treats, and they are just treats. For I know you eat your meals all day finding berries in the woods and shellfish washed upon the shore. And on Thursdays, salvaged garbage is the lunch du jour. But you don't realize that I tempt you here with treats to hear you talk and teach your children who are following your lead. So you kings and queens of sky and wind, you too were downy chicks, all heads with beaks that opened wide when your parents brought you food. Your chicks have glossy feathers now that reflect light from the sun and hypnotize me as you all lift off in most glorious flight. Yet you caw, seemingly unaware that I must sweep the deck and put out seeds and corn for the smaller ones who wait their turn, like cardinals and chipmunks and chickadees. And don't forget the pesky squirrels who'd love to grab your treats. There are your crested cousins jays, who told you that I'm here at last. But they are unafraid, grabbing corn and treats and taking off, their iridescent blue and white vanishing up to greet oak's limbs. Sometimes you sit above and wait and preen your handsome selves and send to me a feather light and free, a gift it seems. It floats along on waves of wind, gently rocking as a tiny boat that settles when I reach out and it nestles in my hand. Thanking you, my corvid friends, I spread your treats and slowly back away in wonderment and joy, as one by one You clear the gate in silence, lightly land inside, and eat. In the best of times. I am eagle in the best of times. Without the gift of flight, I can still soar and witness love and spirit's attempts to bring forward in each of us the hidden treasures of joy and grace and forgiveness. It can happen in a heartbeat or in finding a friend who knows your soul. Transformation of grief. Like some gray cloud, it slips upon you unprepared. Though pushed around a corner on a brighter day, it sits there waiting for a verse or song that turns your mind to vistas laced with sunshine that you once had shared. It waits for empty moments in the day, not filled with purpose to delay its re-emerging once again, to cloak your heart with its cold weight. And neither light nor sound will penetrate its dreary shape. Ah, will it disappear someday or be transformed to fibers of a lighter gauge? Though resting on your thoughts of them whose passing left behind that shroud of gray, it will not cause such pain, nor blindness to a joyous scene, as when birds fly back to nest in woods and fields, or when blossoms that open with a welcoming to spring seem like a comforting caress from them whose presence always will remain. Then peace and love will gain passage to your mind again and hold your heart in their embrace. Davis and Alexa and me. Yesterday I was sad. I was tired. I was tired of being sad. Glancing down, I saw his emerald eyes watching me. Ah, said I to my feline familiar, shall I ask Alexa to play our favorite song? He arose and brushed against my leg with his silky coat and feathered tail, which almost always means yes. Alexa, play The Glory of Love, which he did. And I danced and I sang. Davis joined in, first watching, then purring loudly, then approving by slowly blinking his eyes. Yes, I answered, you helped me chase the sadness away. In the garden, Frances greeted me with the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. Her smile lit up the room and my heart the day we met. We talked and learned a bit about each other. She wanted to be able to walk on her own again and then go home. At each visit, we talked. She'd talk about going home. But after a while, I knew that she knew that was not to be. So once a week, our visits were filled with reminiscences and songs. With the songs came more memories of her family and friends. Oh, how she loved her children and grandchildren and the ones to come. It took a while to grasp her sense of humor, for in addition to her ready smile and laugh, she had a way to hide what she was thinking by closing her eyes. I'd think she was drifting off to sleep, but no, just thinking, perhaps of a question I had asked, or of a new thought laced with joy and a funny memory. Her smile was radiant with impish pleasure as she opened her eyes and another story emerged. She kept me on my toes, for her memory was better than mine. A week or so before Elias was born, she said, I'm getting a new man in my life. Flabbergasted, I gawked. Frances continued, unperturbed at my confusion, probably enjoying the look on my face, and went on to predict the birth date of Elias. As I walked in her door a week later, she called out, See, I was right, only a day off or so. Yikes. Just out of the blue, she had been awaiting my weekly entry and so enjoyed my what and flustered look. We spent that time poring over baby pictures and sharing more family memories. But near the end of our time together, she settled down and said, "Could you write the words of your mother's favorite song for me?" I'd sung it several times during our visits, and over time she'd sing along, sometimes closing her eyes. I wrote out all the verses that day, each followed by the chorus. She studied it for a long time, and we sang it several times together, ending with, "And the joys we shared as we tarried there, none other has ever known." Frances lives on in my heart. I wish to thank Frances' entire family for their kindness in all approving this poem to be in Spirit Spark. After asking them and getting their enthusiastic permission, I understood even more about Frances. Beautiful lady, beautiful family. Retuned Heart. This was written to be lyrics to a song, and it was, but I wanted it in the book as a tribute to my sister and as a tribute to a friend. After she left us, I could smile but not feel. I could laugh, I could sing, but without any joy. My soul just felt empty, just moldering on, till I found the answer deep down in my heart. My heart had to break before it could heal. My heart was returned when my heart was retuned, letting love flood back once more, letting joy flood back once more. The poems followed after, just one at a time. The words flowed inside me, I didn't know why. It's called an awakening. To me, it's pure love that was hiding deep down in my heart. So now when I sing, her sweet voice sings along, and now when I dance, delight fills my soul. From spiraling stars came the music again that had hidden deep down in my heart. My heart had to break before it could heal. My heart was returned when my heart was retuned, letting love flood back once more, letting joy flood back once more. Concerto. Beside the salt pond near the coast, seagrasses sighed and swayed into the wind, as Mendelssohn's concerto violin was weeping, or just sounded that way. Perhaps a violin can bring back times as bow caresses strings, so like the gentle brush of hand upon a lover's cheek, or melodies that soar and dip their wings into the sea as Osprey did today. From years before, she kept the music deep within her heart, the memories of the two of them just holding hands, allowing Mendelssohn to comfort them, yet for a little while. And so today she listened to its haunting sounds, and in her mind as they held hands, the music played and seagrass danced and brought them back together once again for yet a little while. Friendship. When friendship is a sacred thing, would it matter where we met? If we met 1,000 years ago in the mountains of Tibet? Or the island of Tahiti circled by an ocean blue, where we listened to each other's words and began a friendship true. Ah, but it wasn't in Tahiti or in Himalayan heights, even London or a Paris bus sharing stories in the night. In a market, a tiny meeting hall, just you and I, the only ones at all. Sometimes sitting on a parkside bench, people smiling walking by. Somehow we knew above it all, we did not need to try. For our friendship forged itself before, with Spirit's gift of grace, and sharing all our news and joys would set its timely pace. So here we are as years they go, still learning each new day. As treasures grow within our hearts, somehow we find our way. This was one of 2 poems meant to become a song, and so it has. To Spirit. You taught me how to fly. I learned much more than could be imagined, that my soul could soar forever in its weightlessness, then once again to dance upon the earth in joyous return. To sing when you would take me up to Eagle's Heights, or to sleeping souls who then awaken to their memories found. To spirit on all your myriad perfect forms, my poems and song begin and end with gratitude. You taught me how to fly. A question poem and its answer. For those of you listening, this poem was inspired by a photo of 4 Clydesdales pulling a large wagon, but the email photo made it look as if it were on Karen's Road instead of at the Barnstable County Fair. Question poem from Millie to Karen after getting photo below, 4 p.m. Wow, are they bringing in the slabs of stone for the bottom of your steps? Will they pull us to stir crazy at the end of your busy day? May we feed them chunks of carrots when they carry us back home? May I press my forehead to theirs as I breathe into their noses? Oh, beautiful draft horses, wish I were back in time when the day began at 5 a.m. and sunset was its end. I'd wash you and brush you and towel you all dry and wrap my arms around your neck and sing you words of praise. Letter poem back from Karen to Millie. Karen was at Barnstable County Fair, 4:15 p.m. This just stopped me in my tracks. Amid the noise and flashing lights, I had to read and continue reading, laughing out loud. Night visitor. I first met him whilst he was in a cage. Do not worry, for he was not trapped in one. His bright, huge eyes showed no fear as I stepped ever closer to him. Eyes black and shining with an innocence I had not seen when he'd flashed like a lightning bolt from tree to tree and edged his way with one last leap toward the tube of seed. The tube was surrounded by a cage to keep out squirrels. Aha! The makers of this device had never seen a flying squirrel navigate the tiny square holes. Nor had I until his brown and amber body had found at last the sunflower seeds galore. With little hands, he gently took them from the tube and saved some in his cheek for later on. Marveling at his bravery, I moved yet closer still. His coat appeared as silken fur, which gathered in a wrinkled cloak around his waist. He thought to leave a few times, but stayed to gather more. Then, with evening meal complete, out he smoothly passed through bars of steel and flung himself through air and space. Whilst reaching out with tiny hands and feet and stretching out his wrinkled cloak, he made himself into a furry kite. Flat rudder tail helped change his course as I whispered a goodbye. Somehow I knew we'd meet again as he sailed and leapt and sailed and leapt and glided into night. Celtic music in the fog. The green leaves of oak, darkly glowing in the noontime sun, appeared as dusted with a coat of soft gray snow in the evening fog. Strange, this was the first time I'd noticed that effect on trees whilst returning home along Nantucket Sound. Ah, said I, as Celtic song stirred memories from many years before, perceived in dreams or stories read about the mists of Avalon. Such a fog had hidden mystic lands that fed my thoughts of long-gone place and time. Now, slow-moving hooded persons, faces shrouded by their capes, became the druid elders planning ceremonies upon the hazy Gaelic shores. The deepening fog, combined with lilting music, built this picture from afar. Wrapped with total contemplation, I did not know who'd sent this gift of welcome reminiscence. One thing I know for sure about this stirring mystery, I must thank the ancient Celtic music and my velvet island fog. The messenger. She soared above us, catching upper currents while her broad dark wings were still. Focusing at first her hooded golden eyes on Mount Defiance, she turned her great white head toward Grasmere's valley far below. A snowy cloud was low enough to screen her moving shadow in a slow and spiraling flight. Unafraid, the horses only added to this dreamlike scene with their quiet munching of the soft, sweet hay. Back then, I did not know that Eagle was a messenger. This visit was her first. A spirit guide, she forecast the awakenings, not remembered from the times before, and left behind in childhood days. Left behind with knowing, as the years just went along. Yet close she stayed, and deep inside I felt the tidings that she'd brought. Many which I would not see, and many that I could not hear. Then from early spring to late December and beyond, the messages were carried on her fluttering wings, and I was told to grasp the golden cords of promises from many stars, far past the Milky Way. And thus they filled my dreams, and thus they filled my heart, until I knew and felt the Spirit's call, carried in by eagle's wings at last. Last night you were in a dream, more of an answered prayer than dream, for you had turned your head to me as you were moving forward, your face radiating renewed faith and energy and joy. I knew that your smile was one with spirits, as was the answered prayer for grace. Echoes. Spirit echoes from my poems, for spirit is in each of us, calling from the core of our existence. 2-footed or 4, winged or bound to earth, or rising from the ocean's depth in harmony with waves and wind. And yes, the mighty oak that's standing steady in a storm, the seagrass bending gracefully in dance, and flowers drawing in the butterflies and bees. All our calls will echo from and through the greatest heights, or from the lowest plains, until that time of recognition in and of each other, when we see and we know the divine. Afterthoughts. Colonial Theater. Oh my, it seems a place left far behind in the golden age of theater, when ladies with their hair in lace, with their dresses skirting the marble floors, sat in high gold fashion box seats, with fans before their faces, eagerly awaiting the curtains rising and the start of the orchestra below. Silence, then applause, as the handsome tenor in his black tuxedo began the aria, which made the ladies blush with joy. Sand dollars and dolphins. Once again, my memory shifts to younger years, magical, mysterious years, years of overwhelming joy and perhaps a bit of sadness just thrown in to even things out in a teenager's life. Poems of mine reflect those memories sometimes when they are gifts from the Milky Way or beyond. I still believe some are. But today, the gift of memory was enclosed in a lovely, perfect sand dollar at a vendor's booth, hung on a ribbon of silken white. For when I saw it, instantly the past returned. I saw again the sleek, gray bodies pass me by as they arched and dove back into the Florida Sea. Bright black eyes of the entire family pod locked on mine as they continued on, not but a few feet away. My searching for sand dollars on a narrow sandbank that then dropped off into the ocean depths had brought these dolphins near enough for me to touch, for me to call out to, for me to follow. It was as in a dream My leaden feet and awkward body trapped me, and I could not move. My soul quite ready to swim free, to join the pod, their eyes welcoming and unafraid. The gift today, 80 years later, let me dive into the green-blue sea at last, grasp a dorsal fin, and join my comrades for at least a while, for this ride of a lifetime. This was written 12/8/18. Poems returned. So in the CD section I stood and searched for Kedrov's Our Father. Perhaps you already have that beautiful recording, but perhaps not. So I kept up the search and found an Enya and a Carly Simon I'd not heard before. Then, and no, not Kedrov, not even a CD, but books in the next row. One was of poetry. I held my tears until in the car, opened Mary Oliver's dog songs, read several, and let the tears gently flow. Interesting how some things happen. Interesting how poems begin again. Interesting how poems begin again when they have waited in a muted soul. About the author. Millie White was a public health, terminal oncology, hospice, and visiting nurse for many years in New Jersey as well as on Cape Cod. She also boarded horses, had lots of wonderful animals who got along with each other, and a parrot named Laura at a beautiful mystical place named Grasmere in New Jersey. As mentioned in the introduction, she suddenly became and now identifies herself as a poet. Poetry is her communication of choice. Sunset. The sun seemed precariously balanced on a fragile strip of land that is Falmouth. It waited, as if not wanting to bid good night to the surrounding pink and blue and purple wisps of clouds it created with the sky. Yet it tipped slowly, slowly backward into the depths of the sound, splashing colors into the heavens before it disappeared. I stood transfixed that cold December evening, wishing I could shout out my feelings into a poem, for that was what had been my way many times for at least a year now. My wish was granted, though not as a shout, but as a silent sigh of understanding, as colors blended in the sky and in the water and granted me peace. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, bringing life the shape of justice. Producer, videographer, sound engineer, editor, and miracle worker extraordinaire, Erica Hahn. Spirit of Life, words and music by Carolyn McDade, in Unitarian Universalist Hymnal, page 123. Production facilities provided by Falmouth Community Television, FCTV 13.